And Holly,
Hi.
did you see my second response about apartments in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's my daughter and my granddaughter, not her
Okay.
friend.
But then you said maybe they wouldn't come anyway.
Yeah, because Emma, she's got a lot of homework. She's in college and she might have a hard time getting away. So, and we're going to Japan in the summertime, so that's probably all that she's going to want to do this.
Okay.
But I will check with them and find out. So,
Okay. Well, Judith Hand wrote back just now and said she had said she wanted to go. Now she's asking if two more of her PEP team can go. And I wrote back, only if they're already members of WILF or they become members of RILF right away. But there are places that have 8 beds.
yeah,
And,
that's great.
you know, but
If they're actually 8 separate beds, if
no, but rarely.
sure.
In order to do 8, usually some people have to agree to share a bed, which
If there's a place to park, I can bring 2 mattresses. I can bring an inflatable mattress, and I also
right.
have.
But they are actually rather strict, these organizations, rather strict that you adhere to the maximum number of people.
Well, that's fine, but I'm saying that if people
right.
don't want to sleep in the same bed with somebody that they don't know,
Well, they know them a little bit because they've seen them on Zoom.
But when we're looking for a place to stay, it's important that there be parking.
Okay, well, that I did not put that in the filters, so we'd have to do that. There's all those filters,
Yeah, right.
had to be.
What I sent you had that in the filter, I believe.
Okay. But first of all, we need to know how many people want to sign up.
Right.
Yeah. And closeness to a metro station that will take you right to Grand Central.
Yeah.
Is important. 2 bathrooms. I think a lot of them were like they had 2
There's
bedrooms.
a lot with just 1 bathroom.
But yeah, I think we should filter on 2 bathrooms. And
you're talking about price going up.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I also put a limit on the daily price. There's a slider there. You can say, I said no more than, I think I said $600 a night. So you can really filter down and end up with a lot less. I also changed the dates. You saw, for myself, I would have to be leaving on the 8th. Anyway, it's and I'm a Airbnb member, so at some point I can also look on Airbnb. But what you often find is the same places are advertised on various platforms. Yeah, so I see Holly is moving about. Have you just come in from somewhere?
I'm driving and I'm actually getting gas.
Oh, you're getting gas. Okay.
Before I get home.
Is Peter going to be on the call?
No, that's the point.
No.
He's not. And in fact, I met with him last week in person. He was here in Palo Alto. So with a deal of back and forth, we were able to meet for a couple of hours over a cup of tea. And he's out of Oregon. He's still trolling around California. So that he asked me to, somebody to take over. And I said, well, I can do that. Joan wrote to me that she can't come. There's another WILF meeting she's at. I'm hoping Susan Mirsky comes. I did send you all that reminder. So Ellen, because at 5:30 we have a program committee meeting, 5:30 my time. I don't know if you've registered for that.
A program? No.
Program committee meeting with George.
Oh, no.
I have done that. And I'm hoping Diane will be at that one also.
Yeah. I've reached my limit of dealing with bureaucracy.
Okay. Well, it is quite bureaucratic to attend one of these UN conferences.
Well, that's different.
So, anyway, getting us onto that list that RCW will send out is our most important step. Okay.
Just make sure my name's on there and then.
Well, you've got to send me, I need to know your full name and how you want me to put you down and your email address.
Ellen Benjamin Thomas.
Please send it to me. I
I
won't.
will.
Um,
You didn't say that in your letter,
I
did
did.
you?
It's bolded actually. Please send me.
Was it at the bottom of the letter?
No, it was in the middle, but I bolded that sentence actually. It's in bold font, hoping that would catch your attention.
Top of the page is a good idea.
Well, first of all, I need to explain what the circumstances are before I ask you to do something. Is I think to do. Anyway, well, it's 3:36 here. That's 6 minutes into the meeting.
Okay, there you go.
And the AI companion is on.
It is.
Okay. All right. So good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 26th of November, and this is a monthly meeting of the Localities and Legislators subgroup of what used to be a larger collection of people working for the TPNW. We seem to be one of the few groups still actually in existence, and we see a lot of work to be done, so that's why we keep on meeting. Currently, there are only 3 of us here: myself, Cheryl Spencer, Ellen Thomas, who's another Wilf member, and Holly Adams, who is joining us from her car in New York.
Yes, in New York. Yes.
Okay, thank you for making the effort to be here. We note that our normal facilitator, Peter Bergel, is out of Oregon and told us ahead of time that he would not be here. So we are carrying on without him. But I can say that I met with him for a couple of hours last Wednesday in Palo Alto, where he was visiting. And we, discussed the terrible state of things with regard to nuclear weapons and how on earth we're going to build the movement to counter even having nuclear weapons and bolstering the TPNW. Thinking of new ways to do that, and I think that's probably item 6 on our agenda. Are you able to put the agenda in the chat, Ellen?
I have to find it.
All right. Okay. So normally we start with introductions. So as I say, so I'm a co-chair of the Disarm End Wars Issue Committee of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom US section. And I'm sitting here in Palo Alto, California. So Ellen, would you like to say who you are?
I'm Ellen Thomas. I'm also co-chair of the Disarm Committees of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Before that, and continuing that, I have for years been doing something called Nuke News, NUCNEWS, trying to help educate people about what's going on in the world with respect to everything nuclear. And I'm co-founder and director of Proposition 1 Committee, or the Proposition 1 campaign for a nuclear-free future, which started back in 1990 and brought a voter initiative in 1993 in Washington, D.C., which led to the introduction of the Nuclear Weapons Abolition and and Conversion Act, that is HR 2775 this session. It's been introduced every session since 1994. And that's the campaign, the Warheads to Windmills campaign is promoting this bill, which has been introduced by Eleanor Holmes Norton and will be again. We don't know when. I have been told that they don't know when, but we have some work to do on it anyway.
Yes, which we could talk about in more detail in item 6. Holly, can you remind us your connections?
Yeah, I'm Holly Adams. I live in a tiny town called Hunt, New York, and I am a member of the Genesee Valley Citizens for Peace. We're a chapter of Peace Action New York State. I'm on the steering committee for Peace Action New York. I joined this group when we first started. And there were so many other groups as well, following the advent of the TPNW.
Okay,
I guess that's
thank you.
it.
So, right, so you're actually a member of 2 groups, Genesee Valley.
Citizens for Peace, yes. And then we are a chapter of Peace Action New York State. And I'm on the steering committee for Peace Action New York State.
Which is
We're also part of the Warheads to Windmills Coalition. And so I joined those calls as well.
right. We see each other in various places, don't we?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Which was why it was so nice to meet Peter in person, because I've only ever seen him on my computer screen. He's taller than I thought he was.
Wow, yeah.
Anyway, okay, well, and New York State Peace Action is different from New York City's chapter of Peace Action, I'm guessing.
Well, there's a lot of Peace Action. There's a lot of chapters that are part of Peace Action New York State.
Okay.
We call it PANIes for short. And yeah, there are chapters in New York City and around the state. There's quite a few chapters.
Yeah, okay. I've come to appreciate how large an organization it is and effective.
Yeah.
So
yes, and then of course we're affiliated with National Peace Action, and we just recently coordinated a big effort across many states in the country to bring letters to our local senators' offices in support of the joint resolutions of disapproval. It was a good effort, but it didn't help.
Right. Okay, well, that's fine. So shall I be the facilitator? Is that okay?
Please.
What
Yes,
about a note
please.
taker? I always take notes. And there's a recording. Why don't I put myself down as the note taker?
I can't really do that and drive.
No, I appreciate that. Okay. Agenda review. I think he's got a good agenda here. I don't think there should be anything extra, right? Ellen, did you ever find it?
No.
No, never mind. All right, so then we're on to item 4. Brief report of the special order hour. And hopefully you all know I know Ellen knows what that was. This was where it turned out 9 different members of the House of Representatives stood up on the floor of the House and spoke about 2 minutes each, 2 to 3 minutes each, about the awfulness of nuclear weapons and why we need to get rid of them, and that the government needs to spend less money.
Yes.
Did you actually watch it, Holly? on
I
C-
did. I watched it. I had a link to C-SPAN and watched it on that. Yeah.
Right, right. It was, we were fortunate, Tim who helped to organize this, Tim and Wallace,
Yeah.
thought that it might happen like 11 p.m. at night. But in fact, it was like 2-ish in the afternoon.
Yeah.
They had finished all their business just before. So one couldn't tell from the C-SPAN version just how many other people there were listening. But the
Right.
point was, it was recorded. We keep sending it out to people. Ellen's put a link on our Facebook and various places. And so I think what we should be doing, and what I already did, is send to your own representative, possibly your new representative, if it's changed because of the recent election, a link to the recording and ask them to please watch it. And
I would love to do that.
Mhm.
Where
And
can I
can
find
put-
the link?
I will put it in the chat.
yeah,
That would be great. Thank you.
and then and ask them to. There's a working group on nuclear weapons. So Garamendi, who was one of the speakers, who was going to hold a hearing, and a second hearing, complaining to the military about the overruns on the new Sentinel program. That's the one where they change out all the Minutemen III ICBMs and replace them with brand new missiles and brand new warheads, which is very much over its original budget. And unfortunately, his hearing was to be held the day that Netanyahu came to town, back in July. So it was cancelled. So it's not reaction to, pardon, Ellen?
That was, I clicked on something and you popped up from
It's
previous meeting.
okay. So anyway, we need to use that. The point is, I'm trying to make us, the fact is we should now use that video with an explanation to your House of Representatives, your new congressperson. So my congressperson, Anna Eshoo, is retiring after 30 years in the House representing my district. So, I kind of developed somewhat of a relationship with her.
Okay, so it's 7:30, so why don't we
Let me
start?
shut my sound.
Okay, so there was a very vigorous primary and then election here to replace her, with two Democrats running against each other. The way our elections work in California, the primary is open and the top two vote getters get to be running against each other, and often there are two Democrats running against each other. So the new one is called Sam Liccardo, and again, I went to one of his town hall meetings before he was elected, gave him some questions that Wolf developed, the 6 questions we developed that we wanted our congressional candidates to answer, spoke to him from the audience about nuclear weapons, got rather a wishy-washy answer from him. He's not completely ignorant about nuclear weapons. So now he's won. It took a while for the counting to be done and so on. So I did send him, like the day before, the link to where he could watch the special order hour. No idea if he did, but certainly going to be developing a relationship with him to keep up our efforts against nuclear weapons. So Ellen and Holly, you will be able to send out. You'll do the same thing.
Yes, I'll send it. Our representative is Claudia Tenney. She's a Republican, and she's pretty useless. She's pro-war, she's pro-nuke, she's pro-Trump. But,
Mhm.
you know, I contacted her multiple times nevertheless. And I do sometimes get responses, so I will send that link and ask that she watch it.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Good. I thought all the speeches were very good. They were obviously well prepared. I'm guessing
Yes.
somebody had fed them a lot of information. Make sure you say this and make sure you say that.
Right.
So, and I think Ellen, have all those people signed, co-sponsored HR 2775? Did you do a comparison?
What are you talking about?
I'm saying, of the people who spoke at the special order hour, are all of them already co-sponsors of 2775?
Well, I don't think not all of them are, but particularly the one who was talking about security. I think that he was actually a Republican. And I don't think that he had signed on to anything. Was he the second or third speaker? But
Okay, I thought they were all Democrats, but never mind, yeah.
yeah, he may have been a Democrat. He may have been a Democrat, but he was not like the others,
Not as-
passionately anti-nuclear. He was just worried about security.
Mhm, okay.
And I think that if they didn't sign on to HR 2775, they probably signed on to HRS 77,
Mhm.
which is the back from the brink. You know about that,
Right.
Molly. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay, well, anyway, I think it's one of these things we need to use, we need to find slightly different methods of getting the attention of our representatives and then.
Well, now that you have brought that up, I have something that I would like to say
Yes,
about that. And that is that the way that we got HR 2775 introduced into Congress was we tried lobbying, we tried collecting signatures on informal petitions that we then took up on Capitol Hill and went around from office to office and handed letters and said, here we have so many signatures, and asking that bill be introduced, and nobody ever even responded. And then when we brought a voter initiative in we started in 1991, and then, well, actually 1991, the beginning of 1991, and then we had to abandon it because of the first Gulf War. So in 92, we started over again. And
this is in Washington, DC.
in DC. We started in 90 and then had to abandon it because of the Gulf War. And in late 1991, we reintroduced it and it was Initiative 37 in Washington, DC. And we thought it was going to be coming up for a vote in 94. By the time we had finished collecting the signatures, we got authorization for it in 1991, and during 1992 we collected the signatures to get it on the ballot, and so then it wasn't until after the election in 92 that it qualified, and so it was set for 1994, and then there was a special election because of the death of the city council chair. And people didn't know anything about it, but they went in and they read it, and it got 57% of the vote, without any kind of hoopla. Fortunately, if there had been hoopla, then it probably would have been defeated. So sneaking it in on them like that was kind of a good idea. But anyway, my point at the end here is that because it won the election, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who was a new congresswoman at the time, paid attention, and she said she couldn't introduce it the way we were asking, because we asked for a constitutional amendment outlawing nuclear weapons. And she said she'd be the laughing stock of and she was a new congressperson, although a well-seasoned attorney. And so we said, well, okay, you can introduce it as a bill. That's fine with us. So that's what she did. And she didn't have much energy behind it when she first got started. She said, you're going to have to bring people to it. And so we did the best we could. We asked everybody to do what they could, and we got a smattering of co-sponsors every session, but there weren't very many. But we kept circulating the petition and handing out flyers, and I think that in the process, we were out in front of the White House, Holly, at that time for many years, and I think that it just sort of helped. When I first joined the vigil in 1984, people, people would drive by and tell us to go to Red Square and called us communists, and over the years, the logic of what we were talking about began to seep through, and I think we did make a difference. So being obvious, being out there in a nonviolent, friendly way is one part of it, but the other part of it that's seems to be the most effective in my mind is to do a voter initiative. Referenda are okay, but they're done by the politicians, but an initiative is done by the people. And it's the only true form of democracy that we have.
And it's called different things in different states. So in California, we have propositions.
Yeah.
And what do you have in New York?
Not every state has them. And statewide is not the best way to go. And even in California, I would suggest that you seek voter initiatives by voter district, or voter initiatives by city or county, because it's really hard to do a statewide initiative. It costs a lot of money and you have to recruit a lot of people, and it's hard to do. If it's local, then you can get it on the ballot locally, then you have a good chance of succeeding.
Yes, but what would the proposition ask for if it was only a county?
Ask them to ask okay, what we had to do in DC was we had to it was a letter was going to be sent by the mayor to the congresswoman, advising her that the majority of the voters of DC wanted her to introduce this language into Congress. So whatever the local rules are, you just work your way through the local rules. We started out just wanting to do it directly, and we had to go into a meeting with all these lawyers and talk about what would actually work.
Right. So that is, I mean, it sounds also rather similar to the resolution, and I'm going to send you the link. There is a list of cities that have already passed resolutions on the TPNW and so on. I forgot to send it to you, Helen.
Yeah, and you can do that with city councils, which are very good too. Yeah, resolution is good.
Because
yeah, I suppose that I don't know whether an initiative carries more weight than a resolution. I don't know. Anything to communicate with the powers that be is important.
right.
A resolution is passed by a city council or
right, but it has the same.
But an initiative, it goes through the people, and so if it's just the city council, the legislator doesn't really care that much, if it doesn't coincide with his or her perception of reality. But if it's the voters who say to do it, they want to get reelected. And that's why I'm for an initiative. I think they're it's the most democratic way to go.
Right. So what I don't know is how many signatures you need to get
It
something.
depends on where you are. We had to
Right.
get 27,000 signatures for the District of Columbia.
27,000. So you can imagine,
And if it's 27,000 that were broken from 6 of the 8, you know, collected from 6 of the 8, I forget what you call them. Like boroughs or whatever, like
Mhm.
wherever you live, it's different, but
Mhm.
districts, it was
Yeah, I
districts.
think the ones on for a statewide ballot, it's probably hundreds of thousands here in California.
Statewide is almost impossible to do. It's really hard.
Right,
I-
people do it, believe it or not, but
Yeah.
usually because there's some moneyed organization or
Somebody's
union
paying for it, yeah.
or union, you know, anyway. Well, this, you know, fine. So this is a strategy that would be,
Well, it's something that I want to talk to people about because it helped, it worked. And
right. Yes.
we were sort of, you know, tolerated and a little bit ridiculed with our vigil for many years, but once we did this, people treated us with some respect
Mhm.
because they could understand what we had done.
Right. And in the meantime, they're learning more about, have learned more about how awful.
Yeah,
nuclear
and the
are.
way that you do it is you say, when you're circulating the petition, you say, we'd like to get this on the ballot so that people can vote on it. We're not asking you to vote for it, we're just asking you to, help get it on the ballot.
Mhm, 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 mhm.
And we think you should vote for it, but whatever, we need to get it up there so people can vote. And that usually gets people, even if they're opposed to it, will go for that.
Right. Mhm. Okay, well, I think, you know, we need a little more information on the logistics of doing that in various places.
We need to find out who's already
Yeah.
got them, for one thing.
Sorry, we need what?
We need to find out where there are already voter initiatives. A lot, you know, that they do have them,
Mhm,
by
mhm.
law, they have them, and then probably, check that against the people that we're working with, and, to see if the places where they don't have voter initiatives, then we can reach out to those people and see if they'd be interested in helping to try to get a voter initiative, and that would have to come through the legislators. They'd have to do that.
Sorry, have to do what?
Would
What?
set up the voter initiative. To set it up as something that was happening in that county or city or whatever. Where voter initiatives are not available,
Oh, okay, then you have to.
yet in order to make them available, it has to go through the legislature. The
Okay.
local, or depending on what the state is. You know, we did this 30 years ago, so,
Well, so I'm hoping, Ellen, that you will actually do some of this research to find
yeah,
out
I will.
logistics.
We did a lot, and I'll have to check through what we've already done and then follow up on it.
Right, it's because things are different. I mean, Washington DC is its own special place,
Yeah,
right?
Maryland, Tacoma Park, Maryland, and Baltimore, Maryland, both were working on getting the initiative going, I remember. I'm going through all of my archives right now,
Finding out. Oh, good.
getting them chronological, and so I'm rediscovering things.
All right. Okay.
Where I am, I'm
Hel-
Holly, what did you say? You're breaking up.
She's not talking, actually.
any city in New York State.
If you turn off your
Oh,
camera,
I'm sorry.
Holly,
I'm
we
in
will be
you
able to
can't hear
hear
me?
you better.
I don't.
Okay, unmute
also-
yourself. Okay, what were you saying?
What I was saying is that where I live, I'm an hour away from the closest city. It's a pretty rural area. We the county I live in has a board of supervisors that meets, but that there is no like local legislature later. There's
Well,
just
the Board of Supervisors
there's
should
just
probably,
the county
the
board of
Board of
supervisors, and each
the Board of Supervisors may be able to, if you did, who handles the elections?
the county
We're having difficulty hearing you, Holly.
If you can hear me, Holly, you could check with your county Board of
yeah,
Elections and
there's
find
it's all
out.
oh
Ask them about who would be the people to contact about getting a voter initiative in your county.
okay, yeah, okay,
And let me know. I'd be very interested in knowing.
And you may have to call it a different word.
okay,
The
yeah,
thing
yeah.
is that it's introduced by
Voters.
voters and not by legislators.
That's the distinction. Mhm. Okay. All right, well, let's see, let's go on to number 5, which was reports and evaluation of W2W actions. And I think we've met. I know we did the 1 week of actions against nuclear weapons companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, and then we did a week against the fossil fuel giants. And then I think we've already considered that in a previous meeting of L&L. But then just this last week, they had another one, which was against banks who are helping to fund all these companies by giving them loans and what have you. Now, I must admit, because I had a lot of other things, I didn't actually do anything with the banks. But I do think that next week, that there's a meeting at 5 o'clock my time next Wednesday, where we will hear their reports from Timon and Anduin. Did any of you actually do anything for any of the W2W actions last week?
I did one for Citibank. I did. Yeah.
Which bank?
Is that primarily for the Citibank?
It was
City?
yes, it was the banks. That last week it was the banks.
Yeah.
So you did
Yeah, I did.
Citibank?
I did. Yep, I did.
Oh, good. And you did it by standing outside or by sending an email to the CEO? How did you do it?
I sent an email because there's no Citibank near me. I did an email.
Okay, thank you. I do think, W2W is very well organized in when they prepare and ask us to help with these actions. Their resources are marvelous. I've said this before.
Yes.
They give you the email address of the CEO of the organization and the Twitter handle and sample letters and flyers that you can use. And so very pleased to be a member of their coalition.
Yes, I agree.
Ellen, do you have anything to say on that, or shall we move to number 6?
Move to number 6.
All right, so this is the main topic which we've kind of been addressing somewhat. How will the election results affect organizing for nuclear abolition and what can we do about it? So I can tell you that I did attend last Friday a lunch, a special lunch put on by the Ploughshares Fund, which for many years has been funding organizations who are working against nuclear weapons. And they had us, and because I've given money to the fund, I've also tried to get money out of them, but my proposals have never been successful. Anyway, because I'm considered a big enough donor, I got to go to this lunch at a nice Italian Mediterranean restaurant in Palo Alto. And Professor Scott Sagan was kind of their keynote, although he kind of spoke while we were eating. And he is actually quite an expert and is on nuclear weapons policy, deterrence, nuclear targeting. Okay, so there's this concept of nuclear targeting, which is to do with, officially, the rules of war say you don't kill civilians in your war actions. You only try to kill military combatants, as they call them. Civilians are non-combatants. But of course, a nuclear weapon, being so destructive, will kill anybody who's close enough, civilians and military combatants. So people, have looked at this, and in fact, the International Court of Justice years ago said that's why nuclear weapons are illegal, because they cannot distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. So apparently the previous week, this professor, who's a professor at Stanford University in international relations and social sciences and things like that, he's not a scientist. He does, he's looking at it from a political science point of view. He was actually called to go to the Pentagon the week before. He went to the Pentagon to tell them about nuclear weapons and the ethics of it, and what, I'm not sure. He's supposed to send me his paper of exactly what he told the people at the Pentagon. Okay, so so he has input, and I'd heard him speak at a different event at Stanford. What he and some colleagues from Oxford University did some years ago, they surveyed literally thousands of people, of the public, in France, Britain, Israel, and the US, those 4 countries, to try to judge what people thought about nuclear weapons and the public. And what they discovered, the upshot was that the Israelis are the most hawkish of those 4 countries. And it was a complicated survey. They set up an imaginary scenario where there was this group of terrorists in Libya who were making chemical weapons underground in some city in Libya. This was in 2018. This was done. So this was before Gaza, the latest Gaza thing, before Ukraine was invaded. So just remember that. Anyway, and so the intelligence agencies of these 4 countries discovered that this was happening, and that the plan was to set this chemical weapon off in the capital city of whichever country it was, in Washington, D.C. And it was estimated it would kill about 3,000 people. And there were several ways to deal with this ahead of time to stop it happening. One of them was to drop a nuclear weapon on that city, where underground they were making this chemical weapon. They were still making it, they hadn't done it yet, to stop them, and that would kill 100,000 people, including a whole bunch of non-combatants. So the chemical weapon would also kill a bunch of non-combatants. And so what would the people prefer would happen? They weren't given much, leeway. And the Israelis were much more likely to drop that nuclear weapon on those Libyans than next. So Israel was more likely, the next was the US, the next was France, and then Britain was the public in Britain were the least likely to drop that nuclear weapon. They could also drop conventional weapons, but they were really trying to find out what people thought about nuclear weapons. So anyway, so this, this, I'd never heard of this survey. It is published in political science journals. But that's what we're up against, apparently. We're up against a public who, more than half of them, think that nuclear weapons are a good idea, especially if we're going to deal with these awful terrorists. They didn't, they weren't given any thought to how many other, well, I think they were told that 100,000 people would be killed. So anyway, so I asked Mr. Sagan, okay, so how do we change the public's mind? He says we really have to, and there were some people who said, no, don't drop the nuclear weapons. I'd rather you drop the conventional weapons. Or and a few people were said, don't do anything, try to negotiate with them. So he said, but depending on those people who wouldn't have dropped the nuclear weapon isn't going to work. We have to let the general public as a whole know the awful effects of a nuclear weapon being set off and how many people it would kill and the devastation it would cause and the possible escalation, is the upshot. You're getting to nuclear winter, but even without getting to nuclear winter, the effects of a nuclear weapon are awful and horrific. And he thinks, and I believe this is what WILF and other organizations are already trying to do, right? We're already trying to educate the public on that this is a weapon that should never be used, and therefore, as it's never going to be used, we don't need to make them. We need everybody to agree not to have any. So that's just a way of saying that, and then of course we need to worry about presidential sole authority to order that ICBMs, for example, be shot off from North Dakota and Wyoming and Montana, where the 400 odd are sitting, waiting to go. So that's all back from the Brink's 5 policies, right? They want to get rid of sole authority. They want to get rid of hair trigger. They're sitting there. The weapons are the nuclear weapons are actually in the tips of those ICBMs. They could be sent off within half an hour of somebody deciding that should happen. So these are the things we should be worrying about. We know, so the country has this thing called the nuclear posture, right? We have a nuclear posture. Putin just changed his nuclear posture, if you're reading things like Joseph Gerson sends out or the newspapers.
Yes. Yes.
We have crossed some red line of Putin.
Yes, because we said it was okay for Ukraine to,
and they did. They've sent some
into Russia. Yes.
The
Yes.
ATACMS. They have actually sent them, and goodness who but I mean, a few weeks ago, Biden and Starmer, the Prime Minister of England, met and agreed they wouldn't do it, and now they have. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
So we're in this terrible situation even now with Biden. We have this impression from the last time he was president that Trump doesn't listen to anybody. He doesn't read the stuff he's given, right? He gets daily reports that tell him what's going on in the world. Our understanding is he hardly reads those. So he's surrounded himself, this cabinet. Oh my goodness. Did you see who's going to be the head of the Department of Education? She started the worldwide wrestling organization. Wrestling.
Yeah.
What does she know about education? God,
Nothing.
nothing. I mean, so he's surrounded by these people who
Okay,
also
I'm gonna, if we're gonna talk politics, I'm
All
gonna
right.
stop recording because.
All right, fine. But we do have to respond to his possible policies, right? So we always are working against whatever administration is in power. We've got a new administration coming into power, which on the face of it could be worse with regard to nuclear weapons, or he might surprise us. He met with Kim Un-jung in North Korea, and I heard from Sagan during that meeting last week in a nice restaurant in Palo Alto, that they had, when politicians meet like this, when leaders of countries meet, there's a whole lot of pre-arrangements and pre-meeting diplomatic discussions between their people and our people, right? So all that had been going on with North Koreans. There were certain things that they were going to agree to,
Mhm.
and they met, and some of this was actually on TV. So he met Kim and Jong. They were sitting there at a table together, and suddenly, out of nowhere, Trump starts talking about, well, we could take away the sanctions and we could build a whole bunch of hotels on your nice beaches and golf courses. Capitalism is the way to go.
Oh, God.
And Kim and Jong was flabbergasted at this. This is not what he'd been told was on the table. And so, of course, he said, no, we're not going to do that. And then Trump walked out.
Oh, my.
So, and this is, you may not remember all that, but this was my understanding from people who know what happens at these diplomatic meetings. So Trump blew his total, he got that far, bully for him. He got the meeting and then he blew it by not paying attention to what he'd been told and coming up with his own ideas, all to do with golf courses and hotels, which is his business, right?
The Korean newspaper today said that Trump has chosen the person that was the contact person between him and North Korea before to a key spot for I forget which one it is, security or something.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw it just today. I wish my memory
Okay.
was better. and
I haven't read
quoted
today's.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
be looking
anyway,
for it.
so again, Sagan is of the opinion, Professor Sagan, that, and if that it could be because he has to speak to his military, right? So I hope you've read Annie Jacobson's book, Nuclear War: A Scenario, because that really shows you all the things that have to happen. And
I have it.
You have it. Yeah, we've read it. Ellen and I have read it, I believe. I know I have.
Yes.
This thing called Stratcom, right? The people in Stratcom have to agree to do what the president's saying. So they could actually refuse to send off the ICBMs or tell the nuclear submarines to attack whatever the enemy is. So he feels there is this, slight barrier to Trump being.
However, the question is, could Trump fire those generals? Is there any way that he could get rid of the people who are in charge now that
Right,
might be
but-
brave enough to?
to disagree with him?
Yeah.
He probably can, but the point is, the issue is, you have to make these decisions within about half an hour or 40 minutes. He can't fire them that quickly, I don't think. So anyway, we're in the point is we're moving into what he chaos. It's been described as government by chaos is what's been suggested is a good description of what we anticipate. So the point is, our job to be against nuclear weapons and trying to get rid of them and proposing that the TPNW is one way to go is even more important than usual.
Yeah, it is.
And the fact that he has the majority in the House and the Senate makes it even worse. Now, just to say, because everybody keeps worrying about this this bill H9495, which said that certain organizations would have their tax exempt status taken away from them, that passed the House. But I heard from the Brink talk that some of us went to, somebody had just come back from the Senate. Shoemaker promises he's never going to put that, because it would have to pass the Senate to become law.
But he's not going to bring it up.
He's not going to bring it up. But people you know, I still get emails from other organizations still fretting about it, but they shouldn't. Anyway, but could it be brought up again? La-di-da, yes. So yes, we're hoping that in this lame duck session, right, that the president, our current president, is moving ahead on judges. We need to get the judges we like into various judgeships. So that's the kind of thing we're hoping that the Senate is doing while we have a slim majority. Okay, well, the Democrats have a slim majority in the Senate. Anyway, so and so Ellen has come up earlier. She was telling us about her voter initiative idea as a newish strategy to get Congress to see this. Remember, it's the president. Somebody said, why didn't Biden just sign the TPNW before he leaves? Because a signature is just the first
Right.
step of many.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I
And
think if he hadn't lost his mind, he might have, but he seems to have, he doesn't seem to be all there.
Okay, but he seemed to be all there apparently when he pardoned those 2 turkeys yesterday.
Who did he pardon?
2 turkeys, the Thanksgiving
Oh,
turkeys.
yeah, that's not what I mean. I mean that he's making decisions that are not
Right. No, this
not
issue,
wise,
no,
not
this
wise at
not
all.
wise. This issue of the allowing Ukrainians to use and they use again
Exactly.
they used 6 of them, but what I read in the paper last week is that 5 of them were actually shot down by the missile defense of Russia. They could
Mhm.
see them coming and they shot them down, and the one that landed didn't really go off.
So then they shot their really quick one just so that they could brag about how they
Yes.
got better equipment than we do.
Right. Anyway, so, and I haven't, I must
It's
say.
very discouraging.
It is.
Mhm.
What I was listening to today said that Putin is looking at it that that they're at war with NATO because it was British and US missiles that are
Yeah.
being fired into Russia by Ukraine.
Right. Mhm.
And France isn't particularly friendly to Russia right now either.
Right. So by his country's policy, he and I read could consider himself at war with NATO.
Yes.
Now,
And then who does he have around him, and what are they demanding? You know,
right. Well, that's a question I asked Scott Sagan, this professor who I said, so if somehow or other we got rid of Putin, what would happen? And he was the opinion, we're not sure, but we do feel that he's surrounded people who agree with him. So somebody else would rise to the top and they wouldn't be any better than Putin. We can't depend on, it's not just Putin. He does have a whole bunch of people who agree with him.
like Kim also,
Well, then there's other countries, right? The one thing he did say,
and
which
Netanyahu. Yeah.
brings to mind is that because somebody specifically asked him about the Ukraine-Russia war at this lunch. He said, as long as Putin thinks he's winning in the Ukraine-Russia war, he won't use nuclear weapons. And and everybody, all the analysts are of the opinion that Russia is winning right now. Okay. Winning that particular war. And so in Sagan's point of view, and this is his life's work, it's less likely that he would use nuclear weapons. However, if he thinks he's losing, okay, then he's more likely to use nuclear weapons. Personally, I think he'd be stupid to use nuclear weapons because it's right next door.
You're right.
And it's a
And
very
he knows it, and that's why.
fertile place. It's
Yeah.
the fertile, why Ukraine was considered the breadbasket of the world, including Russia. So they have a little bit of the same soil conditions over the border in Russia. It's one of them, Siberia and places like that. They can't grow things there. They have to depend on that area that's actually bordering on Ukraine. And he'd be shooting himself in the foot to let off nuclear weapons in that area. So that's a belief I've had actually for the last 2 years. I keep hold of that thought if I want to console myself. It's like we would be stupid to send a nuclear weapon, just over the border into Mexico, because it would affect San Diego. I mean, so anyway, I just think we have to work even harder. I suppose is the bottom line. My husband's just telling me he's going out for a walk, but I will be, so just to say, I will be attending a meeting in DC in just after the inauguration in January for my Professional Physicists Society, because I'm on a certain committee and I get to go to this meeting. And before the meeting starts, we have a lobby day. And I've done this several times now. So they arrange, my American Physical Society arranges that we get to meet about 10 different district officers, representatives who, it'll all be Californians. I will be part of the California delegation, and they will give me a script of what I'm supposed to say. They have issues like, we can't accuse all Chinese academics of being spies and send them home, which is one of the things that, there's a new act called something about against Chinese.
Do they object to you adding something on once
once I'm there,
once they finish saying what they want to say? Do they allow you to say something else?
They would rather I didn't, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, you don't have to say a lot. You can just say, please co-sponsor this bill, and hand them the fold over. Do you give them the fold over?
Fold over, right?
Yeah.
We'll make a special effort. Now Garamendi is a Californian, right?
Has he signed on?
I don't know if he'll be part of our delegation's tour, because they're still working that out. Yeah. But anyway, I will, while I'm in the House office building, if Garamendi is not on my list of my delegations moving about, they rush you from one office to another. You never actually meet the legislator. You only ever meet their staff, but that's better than nothing. Anyway, I will also make an effort to reach Garamendi's office, because he is one of I see him as an ally in the House.
He gave a great talk at the special order hour.
Right, yeah. Right.
And Barbara Lee, wasn't she wonderful? Oh my.
Yeah, and then she dropped out of her congressional district in order to run in the primaries for senator, and she came in like 5th. So now she's without a job. But some people are saying, well, we just recalled the mayor of Oakland, and Oakland is where she lives. Maybe we can get Barbara Lee to be the Oakland of.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Mayor of Oakland,
and then she can run for Congress again.
Yeah.
On the road. So I put in the chat the link to the special order hour, Holly, if you want to click on that before we leave.
Right. So.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so we're told that hearing from their constituents, their own constituents, that our congressional representatives pay more attention to their own constituents. And that's why lobbying, going to their local offices, not all of us can get to DC. I don't know where my new rep, Mr. Liccardo's office will be. Anna Eshu's office was right there in the middle of Palo Alto. It was a 10-minute drive from my house, easy to go and visit. So, but I think that's the kind of thing, partly because we want them to co-sponsor the 2775, but also we want them to reduce the military budget. I mean, that's an additional strategy here. Is there's much too much money being spent on the military budget now. Is Elon Musk going to notice how much money is spent on the military? And maybe he'll, in his Department of Efficiency, he will see. Efficiency. But where's he going to do it?
It's going to be an interesting 4 years, I have to say.
Anyway, so we have to keep talking to our legislators generally about reducing the military budget, spending that money on
human needs,
and
climate change.
climate
Warheads
change.
to windmills.
Yes, mitigation of
It's
and-
such
and-
a good slogan that Timon and
Vicky came up.
Vicky came up with.
yeah.
It's just wonderful.
But
and-
I mean, I read the BBC's analysis of the end of COP29, and you know, they came up with $300 billion that the rich countries are supposed to give the poor countries who are about to be inundated by sea level rise. They had asked for 1.3 trillion and they got 300 billion, and they're very upset about that. It was not good enough, they said, but that's what happened at the end of COP29. So we had WILF delegates there apparently, but haven't seen yet a report from them.
Who was it?
They were people from Europe,
Ah, okay.
nobody from the US,
Mhm.
to my knowledge, but I might be wrong. I mean, I was hoping Nancy was supposed to be at our meeting, Ellen, on Sunday, but she wasn't there. I was expecting her to tell us a little bit.
Holly, we would love for you to join us in WILF.
Um,
It's a really good organization, not all that much of an organization. It's a collective.
right.
It's been around since 1915,
Wow.
and it started because of the First World War, and it's been against war ever since. And all sorts of famous people have been members. Coretta Scott King was a member.
And so was Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther
While
King.
he won the Nobel Peace Prize, he was a member of WILF. He spoke at our 50th anniversary celebrations. When we had 50th anniversary, we had 100th anniversary celebrations 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $35 a year.
Yeah, and
And
you get it, and you get the peace and freedom. Peace Release is
Magazine.
what we used to put out.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a magazine that comes digitally once a year and in paper form also once a year.
Mhm.
Different
Well,
time.
I would consider it. I don't feel like I have a whole lot of time to
Right,
join another organization, but it
You
would be
don't-
good to have the information.
right.
Yeah, and you know, if you have something that you want to come to the disarm you can join the disarm committee. You don't have to be actively involved if you don't have time, but you're welcome to come to the meetings twice a month.
Or even less a month. I mean, yes, yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, like, they are twice a month,
they
yeah.
are, but she doesn't have to, wouldn't have to
You
come.
don't have to come twice a month. You can come whenever you can. And
Right.
if you have something that you want to share with us, then, you know, let us know that you want to be put on the agenda, and we can do that.
Right. I mean, I belong to about 50 different organizations because I know that my money, even if it's only $50 a year, helps in their actions. And I devote myself to my professional society and WILF. So you don't have to actually become very active. It's just being able to say we have so many members is a
Right.
great help. You understand that?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would consider that.
So Ellen, can you find the,
WILFUS.org. I'll just put it in the chat, and then you can click on that too.
and then at the top right, it says join or donate. And then you can use your credit card. I'm assuming you have a credit card.
Yes.
And you can write to disarm share at wilfus.org and let us know
Mhm.
whether you want to hear from the disarm committee.
So our next meeting, for example, is on the 8th of December. We meet, it's 7:30 p.m. your time on Sundays when we do it's the second and the last Sunday of the month. And it's all by Zoom now. We used to meet by conference call, and that worked fine. And then Zoom was invented, so we've all got to learn how to use Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's people all over the country are members of our committee. And we includes actually a Hibakusha woman from who was in Hiroshima when it was bombed. She's now 90
Wow.
years old, and she lives in Oregon, and she's been working against nuclear weapons all her life. You know, she was 10 years old at the time.
Wow.
So, and she comes to our meetings, and she tells us, you know, how much she appreciates what we're doing, and she turns up to be interviewed, she turns up for films, to be in documentaries, and she's written books, and we can always refer to her and listen to her if we want to be reminded just how awful nuclear weapons are.
Right.
You know,
Right.
the rest of her family was a little bit obliterated. She happened to be in a good place. She was shielded from the effects at the moment it exploded.
So I'm gonna stop the recording here.
Yes, I think we're done. I think no more announcements. Next meeting.